we need a whole education piece on making Black businesses understand what type of business are you actually building. And that's something a lot of our white counterparts know exactly what, because they know the game a bit more than us. They've been educated maybe by family members or friends or networks that we're still trying to figure out. So am I trying to build a legacy business in a sense that I'm not trying to sell this business, I'm passing it on to generations ahead of me? Or am I trying to exit through a sale, through an IPO? A VC backable business is not one for a legacy business. What we find is a lot of Black businesses are actually legacy businesses, which are not bad things, by the way. It just takes a different type of funding.
Now, quickly, before we get into this episode, a quick word from our sponsor, us. Or in other words, 1000 Visuals, the production company behind 1000 Voices. With 1000 Voices, I was looking for a studio that had that high quality cinematic and homely feel to it, but I just couldn't find anywhere. So we decided to open up our own space. We've got 4 high quality cinema cameras. We've got shotgun mics, not those podcasting mics that cover half your face as well, so people can see you when you're speaking to them. And we've got some basic amenities as well. Water, herbal teas, espressos, you name it. We'd love to invite you to come down to our space to create some content with us. If you are interested, check the link in the description and I'd love to take you on a tour of this space and invite you to come record some stuff with us. Thank you. Now let's get back to the episode. So from the inception of you and your entrepreneurial journey to founding the Niyo group, and I know there's loads of things in between that you've probably gone through, a million ups and a million downs throughout the entire journey. But what I'd like to understand is that you've scaled to 7 figures?
Yeah.
Yep. And you've got over 1,000 clients?
Yep.
Yep. So you've scaled, bootstrapped as well.
Completely bootstrapped.
Amazing.
Painfully bootstrapped.
Well, has there been a particular standout moment through so far in your entrepreneurial journey?
Well, I think I go through standout moments at least every 2 years. But if I was to, I don't know, I feel like there's so many moments but if I was to stop and to reflect on my first standout moment was back in 2020. I was going to kind of run this event, which is now actually rebranding. That event is now rebranding into Niyo Fest in another level in Birmingham to essentially get as many Black women to come into this place to network, connect, build, connect with industry professionals and investors. And I had all the sponsorship, or sponsors kind of commit verbally. At that point, I was so excited and passionate. But and I'm not going to name some of those sponsors. And in fact, I got into a really good relationship where I was able to text some managing directors. And I just, like, a lot of the sponsors just essentially ghosted me when it came to like understanding where the money was. So that moment made me realize the importance of legals. And then, you know, I was literally shaking because literally probably a few days before the event, I didn't know how I was going to pay the venue, didn't know how to, but like, it was probably one of the best events that had happened to Birmingham, the Birmingham, you know, female tech scene. People still come up to me today to tell me about what happened there. And so I lost a lot of, I was doing my master's degree at that time. So I was a broke master's student. I had no money to my name. I wasn't doing any job at the time. I was focused just on my master's and this event. And I went into a lot of personal debt just to make this event a fruition. And straight after that, because of how successful and how, like, you know, how much that event was a catalyst in the city, it unlocked my first 6-figure contract. And so when you're going down this journey of entrepreneurship, you almost have to build resilience, or else, like, I could have literally decided, like, you know what, this does not make any sense. Let me just quit this after it's just put me into debt. But I decided that I was going to be crazy enough to keep going. And actually the craziness has paid off so far, not just on the financials, but also in the impact that we have made in the lives of people, changing people's lives genuinely because we have upskilled them and they now work at, big corporates, and some of them would literally message me and say, "Hey, I've never seen this amount of money in my bank before. It's the first paycheck. Thank you so much. You changed my life." And
Wow.
that impact is on is money can't buy that, and so that's why I said there's so many moments
Yeah.
that makes it worthwhile, but it's very painful. It's a very painful journey for sure.
Just off that opening answer, I've
Yeah.
got like 3 different questions that come to mind.
Yeah.
Before I even delve into any of that, for people, just to set a bit of context, the Niyo group, can you explain what it is and also
Yeah.
how it came about?
Absolutely. Niyo Group is Niyo Group is a group of consumer tech businesses that looks to build essentially businesses that disrupt mediocre industries. Okay. And the way it came about was because I accidentally fell into braiding my sister's hair when I moved from Nigeria to the UK. And from that point, I gathered a clientele of over 1,000 women in the Midlands, and I was doing a lot of their hair. And whilst I was doing their hair, a lot of the women in my chair that would sit down would literally, because we're spending like 7 hours probably, chatting whilst they're getting their hair done. I was doing this as a side gig whilst studying at university or whatever. And a lot of these people would ask me for life advice. We just get talking, and I found myself becoming not just a hairdresser, but a life coach, and also a career coach, and also a business coach. So I was like, do you know what? Everyone needs to leave me alone at this point. Just come and do your hair. And to be honest, I'm not trying to pursue being a hairdresser. I'm trying to pursue the career of an economist. So I said, I'm going to just set up an event where you are all going to come to, and you are going to leave me alone.
This is, you come and get your advice once and for all.
Exactly. That was the plan. That was the original plan. So I set up the first event, and I did it in Nottingham because I was going to university in Nottingham. And, the first one, 80 women turned up. I built a whole journal, literally with the framework that I would just continue to talk about. But still, people kept coming back. They were like, oh my gosh, that was a great event. Let's do it again. So in the first event as well, I invested my own money. So this is when I started to learn about investment. It wasn't really an investment. I was thinking, I wonder what it'll be like to invest in a business, and have ownership. And I tried to work things out in my own way at the time with very little knowledge. And it didn't work. So I was like, let's just give away the money. At least you're still impacting. So I gave £200 of my student loan to one female founder at that event. And she was building it was almost kind of like a food, like a leftover food cooking app. So if you have leftover food, what can you make in your home? So I gave away that. That was the first event. We got lots of in-kind sponsorships by a lot of beauty brands, because at the time it was just like, you are more than your hair. The event was called Beyond Hair. Second, then they were like, we must do this again. We did it again. Then my university heard about it, and they decided that they were going to pay for the venue, this beautiful intimate venue in Nottingham. And we ran it again. And then I invested another amount of my money, I think. This time was £500 of my money. I think I took some of so my university said they were going to fund the venue, but they were also going to maybe contribute towards it. I think I took some of the money out of that to contribute towards the grant.
Yeah.
The second time the money was put into a girl who was building a skincare subscription box to get up and coming skincare brands to get noticed. And actually that skincare subscription box, there was a brand, I can't remember the name, that was coming into the market, and she started that subscription brand. Then they blew up the UK market subsequently after that. So it was all about how do we empower women and to think beyond their hair. Now that's got me to that third. After that second event, that got me to the third event. I'm a Christian, so every time I think about what I'm going to do, I'm like, okay, I need to be inspired. So I pray about it. And so I prayed, and I was like, what do we do this time? And at the same time, I was also doing my master's, and I was studying about economic empowerment, researching about, how do we economically empower a nation, nations, first of all, how do we economically empower its people? And then I realized how there was so much disparity between the economic empowerment of men versus women, number one. And if you boil it down to migrant communities, and then actually the jobs that the women were in were going to be automated according to the World Economic Forum at that point. So I was like, the solution is get the women to build the technology then, since that they're going to. So that event was focused on how can technology merge into creativity, hair and beauty and entrepreneurship. So I ran a coding class at that event. And so that's
did you have a tech background at that point?
No, I'm an economist.
Right.
I'm not a techie. I've learned to be one, but I'm not one naturally. I don't have a background in technology. And yeah, so I ran a coding class in that event. And that coding class was what secured us our first 6-figure contract to then run boot camps for Black women. The rest is history. So now Niyo Group has evolved into this, still operating in the education sector and also the beauty sector. The education sector really running education programs and boot camps to essentially get Black women to get into tech. And we're essentially we're scaling that over this year globally to essentially enable as many underrepresented people as possible to go from zero to C-suite via this platform. So you can actually upskill and get a job via this platform. And we're beta testing it right now. The beauty business, obviously I started doing hair in my room. I trained a lot of stylists because I couldn't handle it. Fell into a lot of problems. I started building this like MVP for like an Uber for hairdressers. The pandemic hit and it was all a waste. It came to shambles because I just built this stuff and I always knew that I wanted to build like I always say I want to build a Syrian Uber for hair. And so I so like what we're going to do, so we decided, we're going to keep training the stylists and we're going to do some e-commerce stuff, so like to empower our current customers. Now during that process, obviously the education business was coming to nascency. We then began to actually look at how we were revolutionizing the hair and beauty sector with training, because the Black hair industry doesn't have good standard like education when it comes to the standard practice. So we started that, and then we're still on a journey of building that Syrian Uber for hair, which is why we have like the first AR and AI powered salon in the world for textured hair.
It's an amazing journey.
Thank you.
Again, a few things come to mind after you're talking there as well. One thing, you're talking about the development side of things.
Yeah.
Do you know a book called Development is Freedom?
No, I haven't.
It's really good. It's written in the 90s, literally. So it's an old book, but it's the best book I've ever read on economic development. It's even on the bookshelf behind me, I think.
Okay.
But I can recommend it. It's so good. The best book I've ever read in development. And it goes into a lot of stuff he talks about then. It's still pertinent till today. And also what I like about your journey is the fact that you've identified a problem. And even though you're not the subject matter expert there, you've gone about making it work. And through that tenacity, through identifying a problem and then providing a viable solution to it, you was able to secure a 6-figure contract. Are you able to say how much from the six, like what the revenues are now?
Get a lot of people
can we just say 7 figures?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was a $250,000 at the time, and that turned to a multi-year contract after that point. Yeah.
How did that happen? Was it a situation where the right person saw what you was doing, or was it a sort of maybe you knew someone there and reached out to them and then told them this is what we're doing? And yeah.
So it was a mixture of a few things. So one of the ways that happened was, at that time I was building the Uber for hair simultaneously, right? And there was something called the Festival of Enterprise, big, massive festival in Birmingham, in the NEC, equivalent to the Excel London. And I was pitching, and I basically shared my vision that I want to build this Uber for hair, and I want it to be built by Black women, blah, blah, blah. I was so naive. I didn't know what I was talking about. So I want to be able to, everything in this ecosystem is going to be built. I wish I could find the video. Oh my gosh. In fact, I'm going to find that video.
If you can, I'll see if I can lay it on top.
Yes, that would be great. And I was like so passionate. And like, till today, people say that I was one of the, like, people told me that your pitch was one of the best pitches, blah, blah, blah. And then somebody picked up the pitch and found my email and was just been emailing me. I just kept ignoring them because I thought, how weird is this person? I was like, who is this weird person? And they didn't introduce themselves. They were just sharing resources with me. And this person also happened to find out about the summit, right? And so we, then he sent me this, and he was like, you have been ignoring me, but this is something you need to be part of. So anyway, I opened up the what's the word, the email, and it was part of the digital skills pilots in the UK. So you might have heard of School of Code. They were the first ever coding bootcamp that was pioneered by the government at the time. And then 5 other suppliers. We were one of the first after School of Code. And so we applied, and literally like we got it. We got it because of the impact that we already were making on ground. That was kind of how it went. Things have obviously evolved over time since then, but that has literally helped us like to pioneer from where we are today to from where we were, to where we are today. And it's gotten us to kind of secure multiple other corporate partners. So we've got partners like Goldman Sachs, KPMG, HSBC, different types of organizations like that. And I've learned so much about navigating those different corporate spaces when it comes to engaging with them. So yes, that's where we're at. Now, not everybody's going to be able to go on this journey of going to secure this 6-figure contract straight off the bat. It takes a lot of tenacity. In fact, I still have to be so tenacious today. I have to build relationships for such a long time. And so if you don't have grit in the game, it's going to be, it is a tough one. And so that's what I like to say to people who want to play in that kind of high ticket game.
What started this thing off for you? Like what it seems like literally started you off on this entrepreneurial journey was when you're doing hair.
Yes.
And the women were speaking to you about their problems.
Yes.
What do you think it was about you? Because you were young then. You're a university student.
I was young, yeah.
What do you think it was about you that made them open up to you like that?
What I did tell you is that I started doing hair at the age of 12.
Oh my gosh. Don't tell me you're 12 years old. No, tell me you're 10.
I wasn't 12 at university. No. Of course not. But what I didn't tell you was I started doing hair at the age of 12 when I first moved from Nigeria to the UK. And I would never tell anyone my age. But I would always present myself as a lot more mature than I was. And people would think I was like, when I was 16, people would think I was 32. Because when I would go to their homes, I wouldn't just come looking like a teenager. I would actually come dressed in uniform. I would come dressed with a kit. I presented myself as somebody that should be respectable, right? In that, and like when people ask me for advice, I will be able to give them advice. So I guess it was probably like a natural gift to be able to listen to people, hear people, and to just have innovative ideas. Now, I've aside from the hair stuff and me doing hair, although it's connected, although it's not connected, there's a level of connection of how I was able to translate I was doing a lot of social activism as well. Those skills from lobbying and social activism and using those persuasive skills, whether I wasn't even intentionally doing it, on the chair, on the kind of hairdresser chair. So I will find myself in my spare time working with the trading standards. What teenager does that, for goodness sake?
None that I know.
Do you know what I mean? Like working with the trading standards to spot fake alcohol. Like I will literally be like a spy to spot fake alcohol and do a lot of like because when I first moved to the UK, I was like, why are kids getting drunk on the streets? This is what was happening in Birmingham. So I was like, how do we change this? So I was like, let's work with the trading standards to figure that out. I helped set up the Dry January campaign with alcohol concern back then. I was a proxy shareholder at McDonald's so if you remember the days when McDonald's, the food was so unethical.
But unethical in what sense?
In the sense that it was so, do you not remember when the bread and the chicken was pretty much not really chicken?
I don't know. I remember that with Tesco when they had horse meat in their burgers.
Well, yeah. Anyway, so I was a proxy shareholder with McDonald's, with a company called Share Action at the time. I was a proxy shareholder for Diageo, where essentially the company would buy the shares, and then I would go and stand and lobby, basically. So very political child. A lot of the people in that kind of young activism group that I was in back then were like Shante Joseph, so we were quite vocal young children back then. And I think those skills I probably transferred into the and even I still transfer today. I was always very involved with like entrepreneurial activities at school, debating activities at school. And so that shaped me into being able to kind of, I guess, persuade people without trying.
Yeah. They say, I've even forgotten the saying, so I might even butcher it a bit. But then I don't know the saying, but basically I'm just going to really paraphrase it. Something along the lines of whatever you can do very effortlessly, and the things that are very easy to you, the things that you should pursue your business in. And it's like you tapped into that very early. So you're like, okay, the women like to talk to me, and maybe I'm a good listening ear. Let's scale that now. And then you put your event on, but it's the thing that came easiest to you, what came easy to you at that point in time. You've scaled that and turned that to a business, and that's I think it's very key. And I'm getting a few lessons from yourself as well, and also that tenacious activity, that tenacious aspect, and also the fact that you don't have to be an expert, you don't have to learn it all. You just spot the problem and get to work. And to be honest, probably over time you're probably going to iterate and change anyways.
Exactly.
But you start, you don't have to spend 5 years now to learn how to code and learn technology before putting on your first event, because again, you'll probably change it anyways after a while. And that's what I'm getting so far from your journey. You bootstrapped your business thus far anyways. You've bootstrapped until to the level you are now, until 7-figure business. In this world, in this economy, I mean, the things that we see, the things that get the eyes, are those big billboards we see in Piccadilly Circus, massive social media campaigns, is what people see, is what a lot of people probably aspire to for their business, for their brand. You've gone in a different direction. I don't know whether you have turned down investment or if you had the opportunity to take it or not, but I guess that's not necessarily the point. It's more so that you've gone in a different direction and scaled and shown that you can scale without massive amounts of outside investment to build a viable 7-figure business. What do you think has made, it's probably so broad of a question even actually, but in terms of bootstrapping in particular, do you think that there's a particular strategy or something that's made your bootstrapping journey as successful as it has been?
I think it's really, so one thing my late dad used to always say to me was, if you can solve somebody's problem, if you can solve somebody's problem so well, they would literally be dying to pay you, right? And like, there's so many nuances when it comes to building solutions anyway. And I wouldn't want to sit here and say, oh, everybody needs to bootstrap. No, like that's not my
your advice.
My advice per se. But I think for me so far, bootstrapping is a lot harder now. You would think that, oh yeah, like 7-figure business, sure, it's not hard. It's a lot harder now. So actually, I have been approached by investors. I have had offers and I've turned a lot of them down because I'm trying to figure out what the right funding solution. I figured out what the right funding solution would be for the two different businesses. But my strategy was really about identifying the problem. This is a solution in this way. Okay, cool. Let's learn from that solution and let's continue to leverage off each solution. So, for example, if you see from the hair, one client is probably worth £70. I don't know. I'm just trying to remember how much I was charging back then.
Yeah.
Leverage that into an event that, although it wasn't really a money maker, it probably cost me, I don't know, I think the first event was 1,600. Imagine. Wow. So cheap. Wow, that would never happen today. And then then you could go all the way to my 27K debts of that event. But then you then go, oh, right, okay, that's another, oh, wow, 27K debt event. Okay. We had a coding class. There was an opportunity. That's interesting. Okay. Now 6 figures. Do you understand? So it was kind of like the strategy of really listening. I think active listening to the problems of your users, especially, with a business like mine, it was like, my users couldn't pay, or it's not that they couldn't pay. The willingness and the ability to pay was very skewed, or should I say? So some people were willing, but they were not able. Some people were able, but may not be willing. So okay, who is this also solving a problem for? So it's finding those people, and for my case, it's been government and corporate so far. And so it's kind of like even leveraging off of that. So I was able to leverage off of those different steps, and then even till today I still leverage off the last contract. Oh wow, this is the last contract that we're on this contract at the moment, as you can see, and because we're a supplier, you're the buyer, as you can see, these are the problems that we are both facing in this contract. So for example, it's solving this problem, but you can also see that this is not it's not the full solution. Let's leverage that again. So that's the strategy that I've taken, leveraging each opportunity as much as I can. And to be honest, sometimes it's not always leveraging with the same people. Sometimes we think we need to, so you would see that I didn't leverage with the lady that sat in my chair to get to 6 figures. I used the lady that sat in my chair to then leverage to the next person that I thought could keep solving that problem. But my focus and my goal is about how do we truly upskill and essentially bring a balance to building technologies. So I think about the big picture, and I think about how do I leverage the current things that I have already in my hands to move things forward. And even with funding as well, because I operate in the investment scene as an angel investor, and I speak to a lot of founders, and I try my best to not put an investor hat on. I come as like a business partner, should I say, to a lot of the people that I speak to, and some people who I write checks to. And there's this narrative of, you've had 100 calls and 1 commitment. That's really good. I don't think that's good. I feel like, me personally, I feel like that is a waste of my time, but then that works for somebody else. And so it's kind of like just knowing what your big vision is and what your focus is. So even like, I was raising for Niyo Group when I said, you know what, I need to scale this to the next level. I want to reach 1 million. That was my big goal. I want to be able to upskill 1 million people to have technology skills, all manner of technology skills by 2030. I cannot do this here with this. And so I built a roadmap for it, and I said, definitely going to need external finance for this. And I decided, let's just go and explore this VC route. And I realized that the DNA of the VC wasn't right for the DNA of the vision of Niyo Group, because VC wants you to focus on maybe one thing and then expand out. So I'm trying to build a legacy empire, but VC just wants you to exit, right? Although I did end up getting some commitments, I got up to about 750K commitment. I turned it down because it wasn't the right fit for me at that time. And what I then ended up going down the route of was patient debt, an impact investment, which is going to give me even more money, but I'm not giving away any equity in my education business, for example. So it's literally just taking on the journey and also being educated about what journey you should take, and almost building the roadmap backwards. I believe you can bootstrap to the end, but you need to be really willing to be literally challenged mentally. It's really tough. I also think that for me, I want to raise this patient debt, and I'm hoping I don't want to have to raise it ever again for my education business, at least. With B2 business, I do want to raise VC for that.
Yeah, yeah. All these different funding options.
Yes, exactly.
Essentially. What's patient debt?
Patient debt is basically, it's very much compatible to impact based type stuff. It's basically, I give you money right now. Let's say I give you £200,000. You agree with me? It can be a convertible note in like commercial terms, or it can be, okay, I'm going to take X percentage of your profit when you make it for the next 12 years till you pay off the money plus an interest.
Understood.
Yeah.
I see.
Which is really good.
Yeah, no, sounds really good actually. That's not really a funding option. Not that I've spent time looking into fundraising that, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it basically.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people talk about, there's a lot of emphasis on VC funding actually.
Exactly.
So you hear a lot about that, but I haven't heard anybody talk about patient debt, which is very interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with that, the Diversity VC report.
Yes.
So they've released a new one recently. I haven't read it, so I don't know the exact figures off the top of my head. But the first report that was covering the period from 2009 to 2019, is famously quoted that 0.02% of all VC funding went to black women, which equated to one black woman in the UK raising over £1 million. And then I think there was like 7, 8 that raised smaller ticket sizes of less than 1 million. The numbers have improved very slightly in the latest report, but I haven't read it, so I don't know the exact numbers. But clearly there's still a disparity there. Sounds like when you was looking into potentially going down that VC funding route, you was getting some commitment. You got up to 750k. What do you think? How do you think you were successful in that? What was it about you and how you present yourself?
There's two things I found and found from myself, and also when I observe other founders, what I found in those founders as well. With myself, I was already building something. I wasn't waiting for somebody to give me money to build it. Right. So when I was going into those VC calls, I said, okay, we started off with running boot camps. We've trained hundreds of black women to be able to be upskilled, and 80% of them have gotten into these companies. These are the types of money that we're commanding already. This is our traction, right? Now, we don't want to continue to go down this we want to build a SaaS model on top of our normal contract model to enable us to scale further. And here is the wireframe of the EdTech platform. And I will literally email them and say, this is the progress of how we went from black and white. Last week you met me and it was black and white. Now it's in high fidelity mode. And now we're building. Now we're in beta stage. So I'm literally taking them on that journey. So they know that I'm committed to this, and they followed my journey, and think that tenacity to continue to build. And what you find is that when you as a founder show that tenacity and you show that seriousness, you find that people will just open up crazy doors ajar for you, because they're like, wow, I'm proud to say that I'm associated with this person, so I need to introduce you to this person and this person and this person. And I found that was the case. Now, some VCs did tell me like, wow, you built a great thing, but you need to finish the product first, because we want to invest in SaaS. We don't want to invest in contract models, and so on and so forth. As I said, I got to the last conversation, and like people were, the investors were very impressed of the conversations that I'd already been having, regardless of the barriers that I may face. And I'm somebody that I understand the barriers, but I don't let it affect me. So that's I think that's number one. From an investor perspective, when I look at people that come, what I find, and again, this might be, I still need to go into a deeper, what I found is that, because I've invested in African startups, what I found with African startups versus maybe black startups based in the UK, is that African startups have a stronger level of tenacity than maybe black British startups. Maybe because there's no option. There's no other. You got to build, right?
You just have to make it work. We just
have to because guess what? A bunch of people are waiting for us to make this work, right? There's a lot more hunger there. And I'm attracted to that more. I'm attracted to hunger than I feel like there's a lot of talk for me in the black British space, where it's kind of like, we're still talking about the problem but why don't we just make it work?
Yeah.
So that no one can ignore us, is the way I kind of see it, right? So from an investor perspective, when I've invested, I'm like, wow, there's a clear difference here. And I've not invested in too many tickets, too many people for me to be able to say this is exactly the picture. But from observation so far, I've noticed that the disparity is quite different. But then there's a different conversation about why African startups not getting funded then as well, you know? So that's the second point. But then the point of VC funding, I think that is unpacked. There's a lot of unpacking to do. First of all, we need a whole education piece on making Black businesses understand what type of business are you actually building. Right? And that's something a lot of our white counterparts know exactly what, because they know the game a bit more than us. They've been educated maybe by family members or friends or networks that we're still trying to figure out. So am I trying to build a legacy business in the sense that I'm not trying to sell this business, I'm passing it on to generations ahead of me? Or am I trying to exit through a sale, through an IPO? What type of business are you really building? Because then a VC backable business is not one for a legacy business. What we find is a lot of Black businesses are actually legacy businesses, which are not bad things, by the way. It just takes a different type of funding. Those types of businesses require probably debt, require grant, but then again, there's also another kettle of fish with accessing debt, because in order for you to access debt, you need collateral for most times. How many of us can boast of assets that we can use as collateral? Not many of us can do that. So it's very layered, and I think I don't want us to just look at that statistic. Of course, it's shocking, because there are, even within the community, there are some people who have very specific understanding of, I'm trying to raise for a VC backable business, but still not being funded for some reason. You know, I was speaking to a woman that I'm going to potentially be investing in. She basically wrote a deck for her husband, her partner. She wrote his data room. She did all of the back end work. He was raising a Series A round. I can't remember how much he was raising. Versus her, she did the same thing. Her husband was able to close very quickly, but she was not able to receive one penny.
Why is that?
We don't know. I mean, because she's able to exercise all of her skills with her partner's business. So you could say that is bias. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why not.
I mean, you could just put it down to bias.
Yeah.
So we need more women
for sure.
in that space, to be honest. Because, for example, today when I was speaking to her today, I've become like a catalyst. Although I'm not going to be the person that's going to write the biggest check. I've become a catalyst of hope, first of all. And aside from hope, I've become a voice to be able to then unlock those other VCs that I happen to be connected to, or not just VCs, also angels as well, to essentially get her funded. But if I decided to just be comfortable with being a founder, she would have never gotten funded. So yes, we as Black people, we need to understand what business model or what business we're building, but also we can't ignore the bias that exists. It's more about trust, isn't it?
Yeah.
People invest in who they trust in. And
Yeah.
So.
There's a lot of societal issues that need to be sorted out. Because there's a couple of things that come into mind. There's some stats, and I've read a lot of reports on Black British businesses. There's a report that is fairly recent. I can't remember exactly when, maybe a couple of years, maybe 1 to 4 years old or something like that, basically. But talks about the motivation behind entrepreneurs starting their businesses, and it's split by ethnicity. Black entrepreneurs in the UK, usually, I think that it was way higher than other groups, basically, are motivated to start businesses for some kind of a community or societal cause, very generally speaking. So, of course, that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're motivated by something different, like you're saying, the way you approach, because a lot of people probably start businesses and maybe don't even think about this. They don't even think about, what do I want to do with this? Do I want it to be a legacy? Do I want to raise? Do I want to exit? Do I want X, Y, Z? Because that's going to impact the types of decisions and maybe the types of networking and the types of things you do, like from day one. That's going to change everything. On top of that, talking about the types of funding, if someone's running a business that they want to keep as a legacy business, then different types of funding, but then collateral. Then it goes back to like societal issues. like wealth gaps are a real thing. So a lot of black families in the UK, black African, black Caribbean, whatever, when you look at the wealth gaps in terms of what we own, there's massive disparities. So even if somebody wanted that kind of debt funding, you know, most black families in the UK haven't got those assets that they can use as collateral in order to go and get a bank loan, or in order to get a startup loan, or whatever kind of other debt funding that there is available. And those very root systemic issues, I suppose, need to be looked into and resolved. There's another stat that talks about the median income of black British businesses against other ethnic groups. Again, the average black business in the UK, the median income is 25,000, I think it is. Then I think for white-owned businesses, the median is 40,000, and then other groups is somewhere in between. You see the disparities. So there's all sorts of things, and there's going to be reasons for that as well. Maybe because of the way, maybe it's to do with the motivations behind starting business. Maybe because they're more community focused, then they're not. You know, they're going to be turning over less money. I don't know. Maybe more research needs to be done. Maybe I need to look into it a bit more. But there's clear disparities and there's clear societal issues behind that's underpinning some of the issues that black founders are the barriers that black founders are having to overcome in order to be successful in the businesses. You've achieved a level of success, and I don't know how old you are, but I can tell you're young. I can tell you're young, and you've achieved a level of success in your business as well. Something you talk about quite a lot, or you've been talking about quite a lot in this conversation, is tenacity. The African founders back home, they have a level of tenacity that a lot of people over here may not have that same level of tenacity. The vibe I get from you is that you have that level of tenacity, clearly. I don't know maybe it's because you've spent some time, a lot of your youth back home in Nigeria, and you've come over here. I don't know. First of all, two questions for you. One, where do you think your tenacity has come from? And two, even more importantly, have you ever gone through a period in your entrepreneurial journey where that tenacity was just rocked, where you're just like, man, this is this is tough?
I mean, I go through that every single day. Where did my tenacity come from? I think my parents, especially my dad, parenting is so underappreciated. I think parenting is really important. So my dad, God bless his soul, like he was just, he's my hero basically. He would tell me stories about how my granddad did not appreciate him having an education, and so he would sell his shoes to be able to pay for his education, and so he will walk to school barefoot. Wow. Imagine walking, I think was it 4 miles to school barefoot?
Wow.
You know, from the farm to so those types of stories made me realize that, wow, there is so much that I should be really grateful for, and nothing gets gifted to me. That was number one. But also it was my dad's drive to everything he put himself into, and he made me watch that process. So for example, my dad was one of the people that set up communication channels, like telecommunication channels in remote villages in Nigeria.
Amazing.
Right? So before my dad put some infrastructure in place, no one could communicate. And he would make me sit down next to him and write contracts. So again, that's probably how I know how to write bids and contracts. He would sit me down at the age of 7, and he would be saying, tonight we're writing the MTN contract together, and we have to get this. We have to do it till 4 a.m. So I knew about you have to hustle. Listen, nothing comes for free. But I knew nothing came for free, but I also knew that I had all the things that I needed. And so even today, right, no matter what challenges I might be going through, I still know that I have all that I need. I don't know, I just have that strong belief that I have all that I need, and I just need to tap into what I already have inside of me. And so my dad would write these telecommunication contracts. Funny enough, my dad wanted me to be a computer scientist. After our fight, we had a fight about, me and my dad had like an argument about becoming a doctor, and I said no, and we did a lot of negotiation back then. And then he was like,
my parents wanted me to be a doctor as well.
I mean, which African parents doesn't back then anyway? And then we negotiated to become a computer scientist. And his reasoning was because he just secured a massive contract between Germany and Nigeria. It was a Skype contract, Microsoft Skype at the time. Microsoft just acquired Skype, and they were going to try and do what Elon Musk is doing with Starlink in Africa. He wanted me to be like, wow, you need to be behind the brains, behind the people connecting. But I didn't get it at that point. And I was like, yo, computer science? There's a geek, that's for boys. And so it was that I caught a lot of things from my dad. And so I think that parenting plays a big role. So I wonder if I was not brought up, I predominantly spent a lot of time with my dad and in boarding school in Nigeria before I moved to the UK at the age of 12, right? But I wonder if I was born here, my mom was spending my mom and my parents were spending time outside of the house, doing night shifts, doing cleaning. Do you know, a lot of things that a lot of our community, do. I wonder whether I'll have the same type of tenacity because I didn't get enough time spent with my parent. And the thing is, it's unfortunate that a lot of our parents, when they migrate to countries like this, that no matter how qualified they are in their hometown, in their home country, they're almost relegated to very low skilled work that takes them, that makes them detach away from their families, which then affects our mindset. Whether we see it or not, slowly affects our mindset. It slowly affects the level of tenacity that we put into things. It slowly affects the confidence that we have in ourselves when it comes to showing up correctly. And it affects, how we even take tasks. So parenting is so important, man. So I think that's kind of how I got here. Yeah.
And then have you had any periods in your entrepreneurial journey when you're like, oh my gosh?
I have that too often.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like I decided that one thing I told myself at the end of last year, beginning of this year, was like, I am going to manage my energy better, because I learned that I wasn't managing my energy well enough, because that I'll find myself like on super highs and then on super lows. So I was burnt, like I think I was burnt out on trying to navigate, managing a team of, how many of us are there now? 25 of us, and also, by the way, like, it's not like I'm managing a team of 25 and we're doing it scrappy. I'm trying to build a proper system behind this business, right? We have systems and processes, HR systems, we've got ops systems. So like trying to do that in a way that is excellent, as well as, navigating business development and all of that was very tiring, got tiring, especially with the economic climate in 2023. And so I just really wanted to just turn off the tap. I was like, guys, bye. I'm sure if I put myself on the job market, I'll be snatched up pretty quickly. Well, maybe that was quite egotistical of me to think that. But so I literally had all these thoughts, like, and then, but I realized that I needed to rest and recoup and reconsider what the vision really was about. So yes, I do have them. But what helps me to keep going is rest. It's prayer, because I could never do anything without it. Prayer, meditation, the right community. And when I'm talking about community, not just the business, not just like entrepreneurship communities and business communities, but like mentors, life mentors who do life with me, who I can glean on. My siblings, my mom, like having that support system, even though sometimes those support systems might not always be, I guess, monetary, having that support system always helps me to pick myself back up again.
What role has failure played in you being the person you are today? If you would like to understand how you can use your voice to drive change, how you can craft compelling stories to move audiences, and for additional wisdom from the guests that we have on the podcast, sign up to our newsletter. Every single week, we send actionable pieces of advice to change makers like you. So if you haven't already, the sign up link for the newsletter will be in the description of this episode.
I mean, I was in 27k debt. As a master's student who had no clue what the heck she was doing. A big role, man. I think I say this to my team. I say we need to fail fast and fail forward, right? One of your first things to do is you need to figure out You need to figure out, how do I fail this fast so I can learn quicker to know what success looks like? And I failed so many times. There's some silent failures and there's some big public failures that I've had. It's not all shiny. It's incredibly very tough. And like, you know what entrepreneurship teaches you? It teaches you that, listen, there's no ego. Like, if you have ego, your entrepreneurship will get rid of that ego quickly. I mean, for me anyway, it has. Like, it helps get rid of the ego, because you become, if you want to grow, you have to become meek and humble. And so failure has taught me about meekness and humility, you know, and that's helps me not just as an entrepreneur, but it helps me, secondly, as a woman, and thirdly, as a human being, to know to love and respect and treat everybody with great humility. So yeah, that's what it's taught me.
The two biggest issues that Black British entrepreneurs face, number one is funding. I feel like you've spoken quite a bit about funding, and I've learned quite a bit already about funding. The second one is marketing. A lot of Black entrepreneurs in the UK are bootstrapping, like yourself. Not everybody has been or achieved the level of monetary success as you and your team have. How have you marketed and got the name out there?
Again, we don't have. The thing is, I always look at, okay, this is what I have. I have all I need inside of me and around me. Our marketing has not. We haven't thought. We're only just starting to really think about putting aside an actual marketing budget, right? So we've done a lot of stuff organically. Funnily enough, especially because maybe in that education business, it doesn't really require a lot of marketing effort to get in front of. It's more kind of B2B procurement and sales, right? So yeah, it's just been organic, creative thinking. In our B2B business, we literally find trends and we literally like think about, okay, how do we make this trend interesting? So, for example, one of my team members at the time, we had 10 followers on TikTok for our beauty business. And I think there was like a Little Miss challenge. And there's also like a Would You Rather challenge on that people were doing at the time. And we switched it up and we made Little Miss Afro stickers. And we grew like from like 10 followers to like 12,000 followers on TikTok organically, because we were able to spot an opportunity. So it's about like knowing like innovative ways to be creative, to spot opportunities and leverage it. I just realized that with marketing, it's just about connecting with the human emotion. And sometimes we'll fail at it. Sometimes we're really rubbish at it. Sometimes we're really fantastic at it. And I try to connect with the human emotion in my personal brand, as well. So yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with connecting with people on a human level. Yeah. Like it hits. We've all like probably sat through presentations where someone just spouting out loads of facts and figures and yawning and fall asleep at the back of the presentation. But when someone now switches it up and maybe they tell a personal story, say again, and all of a sudden paper goes down, phone goes down. You're captivated. You're listening, man, because they're sharing something and it's connecting with you somewhere inside. And I agree 100%. And trying to do that within marketing efforts as well. Sounds really good, and I agree with that 100%. I read online that the revenue for the group is 1.5 million.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I read it online. I don't know. You can update me if that's incorrect or whatever, but that's what I saw online. What do you feel? Do you feel like you've had any particular key strategy or strategies that have, because we've spoken about the marketing effort and maybe the B2B element with your business as well, but do you feel like there's any, if you had to narrow it down maybe to 1, 2, 3 key strategies, do you feel like you've had something there that's helped you to scale the way you've scaled?
Yeah, I mean, I think that majority of that revenue, in fact, we've had a lot more revenue than that over the last few years of operating. That revenue mostly comes from our education business, to be honest, because that is heavily business to business and business to government contracts. So at that point where I think there was a whole press about it, we were still operating under one legal entity. Now I've split the entities up to truly be a group. So you could actually say that most of that, most of that money, probably 90% of that money goes to the education business, and 10% is literally on the beauty business, because there's not been that much I would say attention on the beauty business, which is what this year we are really going to be focusing on. How do we build up the teams or the management teams in each sector to be able to scale it up? Now, strategies, it's literally business to government contracts and business to business contracts, which is the most grueling thing that you would have to do. If you want to do it, you have to be committed for at least 3-4 years of relationship building to be able to get somewhere where you feel comfortable. I'm still grinding, because I have a B2B contract today, a 1 year B2B contract today. After that 1 year, the climate could change and I could lose that, and then I could lose the relationship. The relationship goes cold after spending so much time to build that. And one of the strategies that I learned from, because I had like a few contracts in my books, and a lot of them were pilots, right? But it was like a slow process getting us even to the pilot, and then when we were at execution phase, we're focusing on execution. So there was not enough breathing space to then go in, and then the tech space changed, the recruitment space changed, because a lot of the contracts are based upon recruitment. And so that's one area that I failed, actually, where actually what I should have done is done a multi-year contract and then a 1 year pilot with a break. If it doesn't work for you, then we stop it. If it works for you, then we have a 3 or 4 year contract. Then I wouldn't probably have to work so hard and building those relationships back up. So if anyone wants to go down that very tough B2B and B2G route, you need to be making sure that you're building relationships. And especially, let's say you are working a 9 to 5, and especially if you're working a 9 to 5 in the corporate space, and you want clients in the corporate space, you need to be building that relationship from now, so that by the time you're ready to come out, you're literally ready to go. I mean, I met a woman today who her business is turning over £40 million. She set up just before the pandemic, but she had to invest 500k into her own business. She had to sell her house, to be able to do it, right? Because it takes 2 years to to build a relationship before you even get through the door. So that's something free strategy there that I would like to put out there.
If you were to start all over again, what, if anything, would you do differently?
I wouldn't bundle up the two businesses into one legal entity. I wouldn't position them in one legal entity. That's number one. Number two, I would set up a management team with remember, I started doing hair. I didn't know I was going to do all of this. I thought I was going to become the president of Nigeria. That's literally what I thought I was going to do. But anyway, I would set up a management team who had expertise in key areas that I wanted to, straight off the back, and just remain the group CEO, which is what I'm essentially doing right now. It's a lot harder doing it now, because now I have responsibilities of operating the business in terms of staff operations, but also operating the business to please my clients. So it's harder to do that foundational work whilst also doing that. So you almost, do you know what I mean? So, so I would, that's what I would do differently, if I was to start all over again.
What advice would you give to someone else who's wanting to go down the same entrepreneurial route, who wants to achieve a level of success? Perhaps another black woman, actually, who's facing these barriers and hurdles and sees the statistics, might be daunted by looking at these VC fund numbers and all that kind of thing, but they want to be successful in this world. What would you tell them?
It depends on what success is to you. I mean, the dial of success changes as we experience what success feels like. So you hear 1.5 million revenue and you think, wow, successful. I felt more successful when we were 6 figures than I feel successful now, because I was doing things that I enjoyed and brought me life then than now. So it depends on what success looks like. So, and why did I feel successful then? Is because I felt like I was visioning more. I'm still visioning now. People that know me probably thinking you're crazy. You are still a visionary. You're still visioning. But I felt like I had more freedom to vision better than, without some constraints that I maybe have now. But I would just say really, really, really define your vision. Really know what you're trying to achieve. Be tenacious about it. Don't stop. Like, heck, I've had so many rejections. Goodness gracious. I think I was looking at the amount of calls I had sometime in 2019. I think I had like literally 500 calls and then literally 2 clients closed.
Oh my gosh.
Do you know what I mean? How, like, imagine going into sales calls and, back to back, and you're just getting rejection upon rejection. Like, you've got to really toughen up, get a tough skin. And I think a lot of the people in my team who work for me have learned, wow, this game is not that easy. You see the shiny headlines and you think, wow, I want to be part. No, but it's actually tough. So you've got to really make sure that you are ready for that. And the mindset that comes with that is literally like, you need to be a little bit delusional and crazy. I feel like that's a necessary condiment. And I think also be also willing to change the dial of success as well, and know what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So if I had restarted Niyo Group today, I would be a lot more clear. I'll be a lot clearer on exactly what it is I want to achieve. I mean, to be honest, I am clearer now. Like, one of my big goals is I want Niyo Labs, the education business, to train 1 million people globally and to get them from 0 to C-suite. That's a very simple goal. And I want to have at least 250 million pounds revenue in the next 5 years. That's a big goal. And I'm not moving the dial on that. Right? And so everything I do, I literally focus on the journey towards that, and everything else is a distraction. So it's just really defining what those goals are and then thinking about what are the KPIs to get there.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Have you got any final words for us?
It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Same.
Final words. I think anybody can do whatever they want to do. That's just it, really. You can do whatever you want to do. What is really stopping you is fear. It's not having the right networks. To be honest, I don't even think it's not having the right networks, I think it's fear. At the root of it all, fear, and also confidence, and presenting yourself in a way that solves like real life problems for whether it's businesses or individuals. So yeah, you can do it, basically, is my takeaway from today.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Value packed. I feel like I learned a lot, man. Value packed. You've had an amazing journey as well. So thank you. I really appreciate you coming down today.
No worries.
And that's that. So thank you for tuning in. We had Oyin, the founder of the Niyo Group, on a podcast. And for now, people, we're out.
Thank you.